Hi, everybody. David Nour. I want to welcome you to what we hope will be several fantastic get togethers on this idea, this concept of revenues, relationships, and AI. We are live on, let's see, LinkedIn, YouTube, X. And if you follow me, follow us on any of those, I hope you'll jump in with your comments, with your questions, with your suggestions, ideas as we go through this content. So if you followed my work, if you know anything about kind of my background, I think you know this is book number 12. And I've been passionate about this idea for a couple of decades. And for 22 years, I've been running a professional services company. And I've made every mistake in the book, I've made it. And what's fascinating is I'm seeing other firms, professional mid-market, professional service firms, whether you're an individual contributor, if you think of a director level or partner, whether you are part of the leadership team, like a practice leader, or maybe member of the executive committee, and certainly firm-wide, when it comes to your brand or your systems or your culture, I'm seeing very similar mistakes. And I thought I'd do a series of these to shed some light on them, and more importantly, kind of really talk about the digital transformation we've gone through and how we believe it could also help others go through the same experience. So I want to share. Let's see. I want to share my screen, and I'm hoping. Let's see. There we go. So obviously the focus is on this session, really turning your network into your biggest referral engine. And we believe there's an opportunity. So mid-market consulting firms, if you think about it a second, don't fail for lack of smart people or technical expertise. They stall because they treat revenue as episodic instead of relational, instead of leadership as an operational instead of growth minded, and AI as a tool, as a gadget instead of a force multiplier of what we believe should be a trust based growth. So the agenda, obviously your agenda should be revenues, relationships, and AI. We believe those three are critical in the growth of the firm. And it's great to see some friends joining us already. So Charity Youngblood's here. Thank you for this session, David. Excited to be here. Delighted you're here. Thank you for jumping in. And I'll encourage others to also jump in and say hello if you're here. I will make sure we'll give you a shout out. So I want to talk about mindset. There's this prevailing myth of quantity of contacts versus quality of relationships. And I've got to tell you, I've been at this for a while, and I cringe when I hear network because it screams transactional. It screams, again, the quantity focus versus the quality. I want to talk about this roadmap of your ideal relationship profiles. You've heard of ideal customer profiles. You've heard of personas. You've heard of the need to focus on the right market segment. Well, the firmographic and demographic and all that is great, but not if it doesn't allow you to focus on relationships that are critical to your success. So we're going to define them. I'm going to give you some attributes. By the way, if you're a diligent note taker like I am, I'm also going to show you how to get a copy of this presentation. If you're here, if you've attended afterwards, I want to talk about a tool set. I want to talk about how to become more contextually relevant. One of the biggest reasons I think people have a hard time getting in or getting engaged is you're not relevant to me. You're talking about something that's important, maybe important to you, maybe important at some point, but it's not top of mind for me. So from a context standpoint, you're not a priority for me. And as such, that's going to be really difficult for you to get in and stay there. And then certainly as a bonus, this idea of relationship enablement. How do we enable our network to become a force multiplier for us in the market. So that's the agenda I'm going to cover. Obviously, we're going to do this in a sprint fashion. So if you've seen me present, hopefully a lot of good content, but delivered in a fire hose. So hopefully strap on your seatbelt and we'll get through this together. So what's holding back mid-market consulting growth? I want to start as an individual. Relationships are not between buildings and logos. They're always between individuals. So as I said, if you're a director, if you're a partner, there's a heavy over-reliance on personal networks, right? My own Rolodex versus scalable relationships firm-wide. There's still way too many directors and partners of firms who believe that's my contact, that's my individual that I know or I've nurtured, and they're not seeing the bigger picture. If I were to use a sports analogy, they're playing a position not as a team. Cycling. Are you cycling alone or are you cycling in a peloton? That if you watch Tour de France, if you watch even some of the best sports teams, they're comprised of, yes, talented individual players who have to play as a team. I'm amazed. Mid-market consulting, a lot of times doesn't play as a team. Inconsistent business development skills, right? Great at delivery, weak at pipeline creation, weak at nurturing, weak at conversion. Those are all business development skills. Time-starved growth activities. The billable hours crowd out space for prospecting, for relationship cultivation, for thought leadership. Unsure of how to use AI for account insights, influence mapping, or relationship intelligence. You might be reluctant. You might not know where to start. This reminds me a lot like, and again, I'm dating myself, but you remember when the web first came out, right? They were basically, glorified brochureware. Now look at how far we've come with our ability to use SaaS-based, cloud-based tools and mobile apps. AI is very much the same. We're at the cusp of some really interesting perspectives and lenses, particularly for mid-market consulting. Those three areas: account insights, influence mapping, relationship intelligence. I'm going to show you some of that. And then there's fundamentally this transactional mindset, right? You're chasing projects. You go from one project to the next versus how do I cultivate a multi-year strategic client relationship? In many ways, I got to tell you, full disclosure, I was at a men's prayer retreat this past weekend, and one of the speakers talked about building a love-centered kind of mindset. If your mindset becomes one of relationship centricity, how do I take a long-term view of this account and this relationship versus the short-term transaction? By the way, I'm a realist. I know you've got to close. You got utilization pressures. You've got competitive pressures. I know you got to close transactions as well, but not at the expense of those longer-term, highly relationship-centric approaches. So as an individual, those are just some of the things that I'm observing, right? Again, love it. Charity's jumping in. Love these reframes, right? Focus on the quality of the connection, which is really what leads to revenue. Unequivocally, yes. Charity, you're getting your money's worth today. So delighted you're here. Thanks for jumping in. Now, let's talk about the leadership. Again, if you're a practice lead or if you're a part of the executive committee, in many ways, unfortunately, you have a misalignment between a growth strategy and a relationship strategy. So you set revenue targets without clarity on which clients, markets, or ecosystems to invest in. There's inconsistent accountability. Growth expectations are pushed to the individuals, but are not modeled. They're not coached or reinforced at the leadership table. You've got fragmented view of relationships because there's no single source of the truth on firm-wide, what I call relationship capital. It leads to duplication. It leads to missed opportunities. It leads to client fatigue. Underinvestment in enablement. So leaders fail to fund tools, training, AI adoption that's going to empower the team to grow faster, grow smarter. And then there's a very reactive versus proactive leadership. You're waiting for deals to appear instead of orchestrating an ecosystem that plays and relationship driven kind of market opportunities, market positioning. So from a practice leader, from executive committee, we've got some roadblocks. We've got some challenges. Last but not least is the firm. So at the firm level, three things really stand out to me. Are you building a brand? Do you have the right systems to scale? And are you nurturing the right culture? So siloed practices, right? They operate in essence as kingdoms, and they miss cross-sell, upsell, integrated solutions. I had an old client years ago who was a sales leader, and he would say, SIAT, sell everything on the truck. If you're already in an account where they like you, where they trust you, where they believe you, where they, right, like working with you, are they aware of your broader set of capabilities and competencies? Weak differentiation. You struggle to articulate why clients should pick them over any other boutiques or any other tech-enabled disruptors. Listen, last time I checked, and I love this ad, you probably have seen it. ChatGPT finished building this building for me. It can't. Can it give you drawings, recommendations, building material for the location that you're in, on and on and on? Yes, but it physically cannot finish that building. So what's that building for your clients where no amount of AI is going to be able to do that? Where's that differentiation? Poor relationship visibility. CRM systems, you hate to say, have become glorified Rolodexes. There's no relational intelligence. There's no clear ROI on client engagement. Is it any surprise that I often talk about CRM has forgotten the R? I used one for 20 plus years. A couple of years ago, we went to another one. They are not relationship management tools. They're pipeline and forecasting, and they track activities. So that system doesn't give me any actionable relational insights. Culture that's resistant to AI, right? Consulting firms who see AI as a threat versus an amplifier of their expertise, an amplifier of that trusted advisor role they've worked so hard to earn, are in deep trouble. Short-term orientation, quarterly revenues, pressure outweighs long-term relationships and capability investment, and in essence stunts any kind of firm growth. So at an individual, at a leadership, and certainly at the firm level, these are just some of the barriers that I'm seeing. By the way, again, we're live on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on X. I would encourage you to jump in if you have questions, comments throughout as we go through. So this isn't just my opinion. EPSTA does a lot of global research. They created a report, which I'm happy to share with you, of the B2B sales benchmark, right? The state of sales, B2B sales isn't good. And if your firm has a business development team, they're equally struggling of hitting their quotas. You've got velocity delta. You've got deals that are slipping. The same report, interestingly enough, says the DNA of really high-performing teams, these four attributes: selling skills, time management, right? Pipeline management, and then relationships. Fascinating to see AI replace a lot of the mundane in each of these categories. In each of these three categories, a lot of AI tools are replacing the day in and day out. What they're not able to do is impact the relationship as effectively so far. So, as I mentioned in the agenda, let's start with this myth of quantity versus quality, right? I honestly think social media has propagated it, where many partners, right? If you look through some of these things, many partners wrongfully believe more connections means more opportunities, leading to bloated and shallow networks. Full disclosure, I've got 20,000 plus contacts on LinkedIn. I couldn't tell you how I know half of them. And I think that's true for most people. You've got siloed networks. You've got siloed networks versus a consolidated view of, right, the entire firm. And you've got surface level discovery. We're spending way too much emphasis, time, effort on job titles, not enough on influence, not enough on what is it going to take to trust that person, and vice versa, not enough on decision-making power to create impact. So let's look at now missed growth opportunities, right? What's happening in the growth bucket? If you're not prioritizing your most valuable relationships, business development happens opportunistically versus strategically. Some partners treat all relationships as they have the same potential. So what you're doing is you're giving equal weight to contacts and you're diluting focus. I'm coaching people. I'd rather you focus on fewer contacts, fewer relationships, but build deeper, more meaningful ones than a whole lot of people that are going to be highly transactional. And there's this short-termism, right? Your prioritization of those relationships skews towards this quarter's revenue instead of, again, the multi-year relational advantage. Those are all missed growth opportunities. But don't stop there. How about limited relationship visibility at the firm level? Here you go. Let me know if any of this resonates. Highly transactional touch points. Partners engage when they need something instead of building a consistent, value-added presence. I don't know about your business. My business for years was event-driven. They may not need me today, tomorrow, next week, but something would happen where they need me. Were you on top of mind? Time poverty. Billable demands crowd. It crowds out a systematic relationship follow-up, care, nurturing in essence. And then the generic outreach, right? Touches that lack context, they lack relevance. And you know what they become? Forgettable. So you got to put this myth behind you. I'm telling you, I'd rather focus on, hundreds, if not thousands of people, respectfully, so what? Versus here 10. Here's 15, here's 20, here's 50. We actually believe in, and our software forces you to think about the top 100. Our platform is built for the top 100 because research shows that an average individual can proactively manage about 100 to 150 relationships. That's it. The rest of it is noise. So I want you to over-index on quality of those relationships versus the quantity of them. Next, this idea of ideal relationship profile. I want you to really think about some of your best relationships. Why do they really like working with you? And I would submit you want to build a preference for your technical skills, top of the page on the right, and an insistence on the way you build relationships. So if I were to just start by identifying ideal relationship profiles, it's an individual who is, look at that, role, influence, and trust directly impacts your ability to create, capture, and sustain what we call intelligent and profitable engagements. Let me say that again. It's an individual whose role, whatever role they're in, that's not a title, that's a role. That's a realm of responsibilities. Their influence, a lot of times, who's the client listening to? That influence. And then trust that Sam's never going to do anything to let us down, or John's got this initiative, or Beth's going to lead that. Directly impacts your ability to identify, to create, a lot of times, capture and sustain interesting, profitable, intelligent engagements. So if you think about it, there's some attributes. I've just captured a few for you right there about this ideal relationship profile. They're not just an economic buyer. but their influence, their ability to connect, their advocacy sets them apart. So number one, access and influence, right? They either hold the decision-making power or meaningful sway over budgets, over scope, over provider selection. Most mid-market consulting firms are competing. So who's setting them apart? Strategic fit. They align with the consulting firm's practice strengths. You have a practice strength. There's a set of capabilities, competencies you bring. This person believes that. They own or influence business challenges that map directly to what you're capable of. That's a strategic fit. Relationship orientation. They're not after a transaction. They value long-term partnerships over transactional vendors. My favorite clients over the years have been, I've written a book on this. They co-create value, thought partnership, strategic dialogue with you. Next, growth potential. They're positioned to expand. They're in a position to expand in multiple engagements. In essence, they help. They support you to cross-sell your capabilities. They're very receptive to innovation and AI. They spend more time, effort, resources to challenge their status quo, not just defend it. So a really good example of an ideal relationship profile is, from me, a chief revenue officer that has hired me in 4 different companies. Controls budget, trusted by the CEO, under pressure to perform, gets the value of relationship economics, gets the value of my candor, likes, appreciates, values our work together. So this ideal relationship profile is not just who you know, but who can accelerate your growth flywheel. Moving on. This idea of becoming more contextually relevant. I want to give you 6 quick ideas to think about. Newsjacking. You see something in the news, you have a client that directly impacts it, leveraging that news to ask them, hey, I read this and I'm wondering, what are you guys doing about it? That makes you contextually relevant. Prevailing trends. If I see it, again, what is the old adage? If you see something that's a dot, you see it more than once, it's a line. If you see it more than 2-3 times, it becomes a trend. What are the prevailing trends in your client companies? Client and prospect clustering. Big value in focusing. Focus geographically. Focus in a unique part of the value chain. Focus on the right. I was talking to one of our clients. It's doing a lot of work with private equity firms. Private equity couldn't be more vast. What's their sweet spot? What's their industry focus? What size companies do they invest in? So the more you try to cluster your existing clients who like you, work with you, have gotten value from you with other prospects in that sector. A lot of firms want to be everything to everybody. No, you're diluting your focus. Focus. Hyper-focused micro events. I go to a lot of events. I speak at a lot of events. My favorite ones more recently have become gatherings of 20 people, 30 people, 50 people that are much more of a micro event than a massive event that you don't really get a chance to talk to anybody. 5, industry value chain triangulation. I try to find other people that are calling on that same account, maybe an attorney, maybe an accountant, maybe other types of consulting, where we get together and we share insights. Who's doing nothing? There's 3 buckets today. People that are doing nothing, people that are on the fence, people that are actively building, growing. I want to work with the builders and growers. I want to work with the doers. People that are doing nothing, I've never seen an organization cut its way to growth. And people who are on the fence are impending. I'm keeping them warm, but the tariffs, for example, have them paralyzed. No problem. I'll stay in touch with them until they choose to move, because status quo just will not do. Object of interest, body of work. You've seen me post on LinkedIn 8 a.m. every morning. That's intentionality. I'm regular blogs, events like this where you're sharing ideas and perspectives, all make you an object of interest. So when you become more contextually relevant, people seek you out. Here's a bonus for you. That Epster research that I showed says top performers engage their relationships, key stakeholders, much earlier in the process. So whether you're doing discovery or qualification, or you're demonstrating some sort of a solution, you actually are presenting the solution, you're negotiating, you're closing the engagement. The deals that are closed and won, you're engaging more relationships more often, earlier. Deals that are lost, you got fewer relationships and you're not engaging them in that solution delivery, in that solution presentation, in the impact you're trying to create. So enabling your relationships becomes a force multiplier in helping you get more deals closed. Real quickly about us, we're building this intelligent relationship management platform in Avenir. Dean Noli, you had me at hello. I love that. Dean is a good friend and one of our the earliest channel partner with our Avenir platform. Love that. You had me at hello, being intentional cadence that's enabling effective touch cadence in a meaningful way, especially the ecosystems being applied. Absolutely. So we're building this intelligent relationship management. In essence, imagine AI. Dean, thank you for being here. Thanks for jumping in. Imagine AI as a teammate, not just a tool. So I just want to give you a glimpse into a couple of things. What if you had a dashboard and you came in and it showed you today's meetings, commitments, signals, and actions, but delineated the noise from the signals? What if you were able to see your commitments and the meetings you had to prep for and signals to act on? What if there was a calendar and it showed you, hey, you've got some opening, why not work on some of those commitments? What if your contacts were delineated between all of your contacts and your top contacts? And if you opened or focused on one of the contacts, hey, when was your last contact? How long have you known them? If they're a top contact and there's not a next meeting, that should be a yellow flag. How many open commitments are there? And what's that relationship score? And what do you need to do to nurture it? So if I open up any one of these into a flyout, not only descriptive information of the relationship status and the goals, but what if there was prescriptive? Here's the next best action. And based on privacy and security, I don't want to show you who Pete knows, but let me show you at the bottom right corner that there are relationships that Pete can help create access to. And what if there were a set of AI agents that nurtured, identified where those risks were, and helped create context, and helped clean up your vault of contacts and relationships, and coached you to proactively stay in touch with people? And where's a warm introduction path? So in our current beta, we're betting on six bets. Can I make a warm introduction in a meaningful way? Can I act on? We see this on LinkedIn. We see it on places. Pete's got a new job. Hey, let's give him a thumbs up. Who cares about a thumbs up? What if you engage Pete in a meaningful way? This, of course, would never happen. But if David Nour hadn't replied in 90 days, why not reconnect with him? What about a network visualization or a coverage map of who do you know in this account? And by the way, you don't have enough C-suite relationships there. What if Magellan, our in-app guide, was able to tell you not just why Emily's important, but here's how to strengthen that relationship with Emily? And last but not least, I brought up the CRMs. I'm not trying to compete. We're not trying to compete with Salesforce or HubSpot or Dynamics or any of the other ones. I want to both ingest from, but also then write to many of these. So if you've gotten value out of this session, I want you to email Jolie Gaston. Jolie runs this place. She's amazing. jgaston@avenir.com. She'll give you a copy of this presentation. I want you to register for the next one, Revenues, Relationships, and AI. Next one will be Friday, September 12th at 9 a.m. We're also bringing these in a breakfast series, 7:30 to 10 a.m. We're going to do a couple of them in Atlanta. September 25th will be in Buckhead. October 10th, we're going up to Alpharetta. You can go to avenir.com/RRA, Revenues, Relationships, and AI to register. We're also going to take this to New York. We've got a presence up there. So October 7th will be in Manhattan. And we're going to do many more dates and locations in 26. And I want to partner with consulting firms and invite corporate guests, corporate executives to talk about why they bought, how they bought. We've got a fantastic early beta access program. So if you believe what we're building could be of interest and value to you, we'd love to have you come on this journey with us. There's a license, there's Avenir University, there's a chair sit that we do, or value engineering, and there's already a handful of folks, more than that have signed on. So there's my contact information. If there's anything I can do, please, by all means, reach out. I want to thank you for being here. I hope this has been useful to you, and I look forward to seeing you at the next session. Thanks, everybody. Take care. All the best. Bye-bye.